Okay, so here we are, Hannah and I. Hannah's my very dutiful camera woman. We are going to make semi-homemade quarantine chili. We got all the ingredients ready, and we're getting ready to start doing it. It's actually 2-day chili, or next day chili, because the first part's going to be finished tonight, and then the second part of the chili will be started tomorrow morning. I'm going to show you all the ingredients that we're going to use to make this. The first thing we need is, of course, a good little base for the chili, 3 pounds of hamburger. 3 pounds of hamburger. Then we are also, because I like making steak chili, we're going to use about 6 pounds of stew beef, and then some carne picada that I had, some shredded beef. So today we're getting ready to do the beef now. I've also cut up 2 very large white onions. I used white onions because they're a little sharper and more poignant. I cut up a whole little box of habanero peppers that will stew into the chili. And I've cut up about 4 large jalapeno peppers. We also have back here 4 cans of petite diced tomatoes with chipotle peppers already mixed in. And we have 3 cans of petite diced tomatoes with green chilies. And as I said, it's pseudo homemade chili. I've got 7 packs of chili seasoning mix. 7 packs, not the mild, but just the regular. 7 packs of chili seasoning mix. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to brown all of this beef and put it into a roasting pan and slow roast it for about 4 hours. So what I need is half of my peppers over here. And actually, we'll go ahead and throw some of these peppers in. So we'll throw the onions.
Those aren't peppers, those are onions.
Yeah, we'll throw the onions in, about half of them. And then we'll throw half of these habaneros in. Let them start cooking up. And then we'll throw half of the jalapenos. And basically, we just want to soften these up. Go ahead and look in the pan. We just want to soften those up. You do want to kind of be careful when you're doing peppers, because sometimes they let off odor, and it burns your eyes. Same with onions when you're cutting onions. Now, we're going to let these get a little translucent. Over here in my saucepan, normally in this roasting pan, I would have tomato paste. We didn't get tomato paste. I forgot to. So essentially, what I did was I just put some salsa that I had available. And then I put into the salsa apple cider vinegar, and then I seasoned it with garlic powder. Okay, seasoned it with garlic powder. What's going to happen is once we get the meat sort of roasting, or once we sear it and get it started, we're going to toss the meat into the roasting pan and coat it with the salsa and the apple cider vinegar. I would normally use balsamic vinegar, as I just like balsamic vinegar, but I didn't have any, so we're on quarantine, so we use what we got. So add some salt as this guy cooks, as the onions and everything get seasoned, and then add a little bit of pepper with the onions and the peppers. It's going to be tasty. It's going to be tasty. Any minute now, my wife will smell the onions and peppers cooking, and she'll think that I'm making some kind of sausage dish, and she'll want it, but surprise, surprise, no sausage. We're just making chili. Now we'll turn this up a little bit higher. so we can do it fast. And what we're going to start doing is we're going to add one of these packages of meat at a time. And we are going to let it season. Now, most of the onions and peppers are going to be taken out of this pan and tossed in here with the first batch of meat. But after they've cooked for 4 hours in the oven, all of these flavors are going to meld together. And it's going to make the our meat super flavorful for when we actually make the chili starting tomorrow morning. So we can start to see that the onions are starting to turn, and everything's starting to get a little soft. Eventually, these habaneros will, if we cook the longer we cook the chili, and let the finished chili simmer, these habaneros will almost dissolve into the chili. It'll almost dissolve in and it's just delicious. Doesn't it smell good?
Yeah, it smells really good.
Great. Okay, the first thing I'm going to open is I'm going to open one of the stew beefs. I guess we'll open the big one. And we're going to pour the stew beef into the pan so that everything can start roasting. Now you want it on high because you want the stew beef to brown just lightly on the outside. You're basically starting the cooking process. So you want the stew beef to brown. And this is turned up super high. So we'll put the lid on it for a second. You can watch the lid while I get my scooper outer. I've got my big scooper outer that I only use for, I usually use it for deep frying things. What we're going to do is we're going to give us a couple minutes for the meat to start to brown, and then we're going to scoop it out and we're going to put it into the sauce, into the apple cider vinegar with the salsa and with the cumin and the garlic. Did I mention I had cumin in there? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't.
But we put a little bit of cumin in there just to give it good flavor. And as I said, you got to be careful because I just got hit in the face with some jalapeno pepper smoke.
That's why I'm standing back.
Oh, yeah, it's a good plan to stand back. You can see how the meat is starting to brown, which is fine. That's exactly what we're looking for. We're not trying to cook it. We're not trying to cook it, but we're trying to make it warm enough, right? We're trying to get it warm enough. Some people would say it's being seared, but I'm not really trying to sear it. I want it warm enough so this stuff will adhere to it as we get going. So I'm going to go ahead and take this out.
It's about like a medium rare.
Well, it's a little more closer to rare because it's only cooked on one side.
Right.
See, so it's a good rare. If you like rare steaks, some of you would say, slap out on a plate, let me have it, which is good. Now, I'm turning the oven here. Shoot over here real quick. I'm turning the oven on 200.
That's low.
Actually, let's do it 250. We're turning the oven on 250, okay? So the oven's going to kick. Okay, go back over to me. This meat solution is going to cook on 250 for about 3 to 4 hours until all the meat becomes fall apart soft. Fall apart soft. Now, I'm going to pull this out and put it in the big pan. flavors of the apple cider vinegar and the salsa. Actually, all the extra seasoning in the salsa should help the chili taste really, really good, and should help this meat to cook up excellently. All right. Now there's a few onions in here, but after all, we still have some.
Meat to go through.
We still have meat to cook. Now,
Okay.
we'll take the second thing of stew beef, and we'll open it. And we will put that in and let it start to brown also. Now, this time, since we didn't put salt and pepper on the peppers, we need to add a little salt and pepper to the beef. Like I said, usually whenever you cook beef, you want to at least season them with salt and pepper.
Can I see the bowl?
Okay, and there's what that bowl looks like. If you'll give me a second, I'll get the lid done. I'll get this lid turned down and we'll start stirring that. So now, this beef is in here, put the lid on. Now we're going to stir this to try to mix the salsa and the garlic powder. We might actually wind up adding more. Oh, and that apple cider vinegar. Boy, apple cider vinegar and beef goes really well together. It makes for a really nice flavor.
It smells really good too.
And so this, you can see it's actually almost making a gravy. See, between the beef and the apple cider vinegar and the salsa that we put in there, it really is starting to bring together almost like a gravy. Okay, and as the more meat we add, the better it's going to taste also. Now, come back over here. Now,
Did you put any more peppers in it?
no, the rest of the peppers are going to be cooked in the hamburger tomorrow when we cook the chili base. So the rest of the onions, actually we could probably throw some more onions though.
Yeah, we have a lot of onions.
We do have, it was 2 large onions.
Yeah.
Throw some more onions in there. Because we're not using any onion powder because we're using fresh onions.
Yeah, which is always good. It always makes up for the flavor. It does.
Yeah, especially the white onions because they are so poignant.
Yeah. I mean, you can have onion powder, but fresh onions are the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know what you're talking about the.
About the onions and the smoke getting in your
Yeah.
eyes? Are you
No,
making-
it's not. It's getting
Are you
in my
crying?
throat.
Are you crying?
No, it's getting in my throat and my nose, and I need to sneeze.
Wah. I swear. Of course, who was the one coughing his head off
You,
earlier?
you.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Okay, see how brown this is? This is perfect at this point for our purposes. So now we will take the big scooper.
Oh,
The oven says it's ready.
preheated.
Take the big scooper and start putting the meat into the roasting pan.
Right.
You can go to the other side if you want to take pictures from over there. Putting the meat in the roasting pan. Now the carne picada, normally this is a very, very inexpensive cut of meat. Okay, come back over here. I'm going to add a little more oil.
Very inexpensive meal, right?
Yeah, the carne picada is an inexpensive cut of meat. It's basically just shredded meat. You'll see it as I put it in here and it starts to brown. The pieces will start to break apart. But it's shredded beef. This is fantastic for making chilies. You can actually make tacos, fajitas, and all kinds of different dishes with this shredded beef. I would say it works really well in my recipe, in my chili recipe. I've always used it for chili. I've also used it for Asian cooking when we've made sort of a stir-fry beef. I'll use the carne picada because it's shredded already. Now let's get some salt and pepper on there. Salt. And some pepper. Now we'll let that cook under the lid for a second, and we will take the spoon and we will stir the gravy. We'll try to mix all of this meat together. The meat and the new onions with the old onions and peppers. We want all of this stuff mixed really well. Oh yeah.
That looks really good. And it's very juicy.
You can see the green of the jalapeno. You can see the oranges of
oh,
the...
that smells amazing.
You see the oranges of the habaneros, and then the onions, nice chunks of onion.
It smells amazing too. Like you can smell the apple cider vinegar.
Yeah, apple cider vinegar is it's a very strong. But you know what? We're making chili. Chili's supposed to be strong and poignant. Now, you have to remember, this probably is not a recipe for everybody, because I've got 7 kids still living here at home, and me and my wife, and we usually have chili for a couple days. Stay right there. As a matter of fact, the same pot that we made the sauce for the lasagna is going to be our big finished product chili pot.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, when we do the second installment, we'll start doing the chili. Now, as far as this,
oh yeah, it's definitely breaking apart.
See how it starts to shred apart?
Yeah.
And it's just fantastic. It's carne picada. It's less expensive because sometimes it's a fatty meat, but it's cut so thin that it cooks up really nice. So what we're going to do is go ahead.
It's really good for like Asian. Very good for Asian.
And so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and scoop this out and get this whole thing in the oven so it can start its, as Guy Fieri says, start its 4-day journey to Flavortown. Its 4-hour journey to Flavortown. Now, I started cooking beef like this, stew beef, in the oven before because I watched a Food Network video, a show by Alton Brown, who was making goulash. And he cooked his beef the day before because he said the best kind of stew is second-day stew. So in reality, what we're doing by cooking all the meat first and then waiting a day to cook all of the rest of the stuff for the chili, we're making second-day chili because second-day chili is the best.
It smells kind of like French fries.
Okay, now we're taking all of this and we're mixing it together. And so there's just a tad of salsa in there, a couple tomatoes, not a lot of tomatoes, but it's made enough to make this sort of a gravy. Now we'll carry this over to the oven. And let me get the lid, stay there.
Okay.
I'm going to put the lid on this guy. The oven is set at 250. And now we'll take the whole pot and we'll place the pot in the oven. And we will let that cook for the next 4 hours. Timer.
This is gonna be a while.
We'll go ahead and check it at 3 hours. So all the tomato, the rest of the vegetables, and the sauce and the hamburger will go into the big pot tomorrow morning when we start making the base for the chili, and then we'll dump all the peppers and the steak into the chili and let that simmer so all those flavors can meld together. And so by tomorrow night, we should have magic quarantine chili. So see you in the next episode.